is Renee Unique, and we are doing a special today on gun violence and solutions. Today I have Michelle Penix, and she has an organization called Be the Light. A Light, yes, community development. Also, you're a minister, correct? And an educator.
Yes.
Yes, ma'am. And thank you for taking your time out today and speaking to the family here. And you've been advocating for many years at JCPS and out here in the community. I recently seen you at the, you were on the news the other day at the bus stop.
Yeah.
With everything that's been going on. So I invited her today because she is a respected community leader, a respected voice, and she's also a servant. We met a long time ago because I was on your show.
For the same reason.
Yes.
Respected community leader and a voice.
Yes.
Absolutely.
So here we are again, you know.
Full circle.
Full circle. Yes, ma'am. So I wanted to get your opinion about everything that is going on with our youth, you know, with the violence, what they are going through in JCPS and out here in the streets. And I wanted to, you know, get your opinion on that.
Well, thank you so much for having me, and thank you to the Plug online network that has been so instrumental in bringing the news to us in a way that we need to hear it, the story that's largely ignored by others. So thank you for that. You know, the problem is so complex, and everybody knows that. It's not in the hands of one person. Now, I think if we had an umbrella, honestly, that umbrella would probably be called racism. I think that, you know, so many of the systems that have been in place, this is what you get, right? So you get what you built, and our community, unfortunately, has played into that. We're still one of the most segregated communities in the country. You know, I tell people a lot of times that we've been trained as black folk to kind of know our place, right? Louisville's still a city where you tell me your high school, I can tell you who you are. You know, if you tell me you went to Fern Creek, I got an image. If you tell me you went to Mail, and so it's so complex, and it's not pointing the finger at one person, but it is pointing the finger at one person when it talks about getting out of this. And when we talk about getting out of this, it really requires some courageous leadership. And I think that lays at the feet of our superintendent, Marty Polio, as well as our mayor, Greg Fisher. I think leadership has to be courageous.
Yes.
You know, Maya Angelou said that courage is the most important virtue of all. Without it, you can't get anything done. So while I think that right now Dr. Polio has led us and our city and our students through a time where he was truly the political leader that could get us through this time. His demeanor, his professionalism, his knowledge has come across very strong. But now we're in a new season, and this new season requires some real courageous conversations, but also moving the needle, because we're tired of just listening to it. So I'd say the first place to start would really be with looking at racism as a whole and its effects, what it's done, and then we need to look at leadership and what they've done. Then, you know, we move down the line. This week I had a chance to make a post around the parent responsibility and accountability, because again, it's multi-layered, it's complex, but our parents really need to start being more involved in what's happening in their kids' lives.
Yes.
And to that end, you know, I was joking a little bit earlier that I made a post driving down the highway because I was so enraged at the killing of that young man. And I don't know his story, and from what everything I can see, his mom was doing the very best that she could. She loved her son like I love mine. And I don't ever want to speak to the specifics of any case because I wasn't there. But when we talk about all the violence in our city, I just wonder, do we know what our kids are doing? You know, how do we not know who they're hanging out with? How do we not know where they're going? I had a conversation with my son that I promise you, if I was a mom now, you can be in the backyard, but that's about it. I don't even think you leave in the backyard, you know. And he was saying, well, Ma, you got to realize that I got to go out, I got to do things, you know, if I was that age, and you know, you can't be held hostage by that. And while I think that's true, I also think that we got to be smart. And if you know it's all around you, you got to be careful about where you put your children, who's watching your children, who your children are hanging out with, where they're going. You got to be verifying those kind of things when they're young, and especially at that middle school, high school age where so much of the violence is taking place.
Exactly. You know, and someone has to be held accountable. You know, we talk about leadership. The city can only be great if we have leaders that
are great.
You know, another thing what we have is a lot of the children only kind of monkey see, monkey do, you know. So if they don't have a parent or someone in the home to kind of lead them in the right direction, they're just out for themselves.
That's right.
You know, and so that's, you know, that's what we're dealing with, is that, you know, children are raising themselves, you know, and they're falling victim of the streets. You know, I believe that, of course, a big, huge play of this is racism. You know, it is racism. You know, across the 9th Street divide, you know, there's a lack of resources. But why did you name it the 9th Street divide? You know?
Right.
So these people on this side, so we're going to treat them this certain way, and they only have
access to so much.
Right.
Yeah, and I, you know, it goes back for multiple generations, but one of the things that we got to do now that we know that these issues are ever present in our face, we have to hold leadership accountable.
Yes.
And so, like you said, great cities require great leadership. So what does leadership need to do at this point when we're talking about solutions? And one of the things that I was blessed to hear yesterday on that bus stop corner was solutions. And it was because I asked a question, you know, who gathered here? Who out here who woke up at 5 o'clock in the morning to come out here to this bus stop, and we know that you care, you thought about this. So what are some solutions? So I'm really curious why, and I remember asking the same question during the protests. And so I say it of Marty Pollio, just like I said of Greg Fisher. When have we had those young people, those protesters, those community leaders in the room to talk about real solutions?
We haven't. We only had a selective few.
That's
that's
right.
the difference. There's a selective few when there's a whole voice in this community. You know, a lot of the activists, a lot of people, the protesters, they live in these areas. They grew up in these areas. That's who you need to listen to. That's who our leaders that our children can resonate with. You know, the people can resonate with.
I remember there was a video that surfaced during the protest where Mayor Fisher had agreed to meet with some young people, and I don't remember all the specifics, but it turned into a very combative meeting, because one of the young people stood up and was joined by a couple more who said, you know, we're done with the talking.
I remember that.
Yeah. Those are the kind of meetings you got to have. You know, I'm not saying they have to be televised or anybody has to, you know, share them, but you need to have some closed door meetings. One of the things that, you know, I'm proposing during times of our ancestors while we were enslaved, they had what they called hush harbors. And hush harbors where enslaved people would steal away in the middle of the night to churches in the woods, and they would talk about strategy. Whatever that strategy was, whether it was how we're going to get off of this plantation or how we're going to stay on it. And the thought behind it was that we as a people talk different when it's just us than we do sometimes when white folks are in the room. And so we need to really have some hush harbors in our community as well to talk about these issues. Because we need the mamas, we need the big mamas, we need the dads, we need everybody a part of the conversation. And we need to think about our kids in a new way. This is not 1968. It's not 83. This is not, you know, the Huxtable era. Our children are exposed to so much more, and we got to start listening. And out there on that street corner, there was a lot to listen to about programs happening in our community that are really making a difference.
And I applaud. I mean, I was at the vigil the other day, and it was, Mm. If you
Yeah.
weren't there to support the family,
Cherry Point
it
Avon,
was,
yes.
powerful.
Everything
I
she
love her.
does. And that's the other thing, Renee, that's so important about this, because everybody has a different role to play. And we have to respect all the roles that are
Yes.
being played. I went to a Metro Council meeting not too long ago as they were debating how to spend the almost $500 million the city got. And I remember there were some community activists of old there, and there were some community activists of new. And the community activists who were new were loud and they were confrontational. And unfortunately, the old heads began talking down to them and saying, you know, you don't represent us, sit down, be quiet, we
Oh, my
don't do it
goodness.
like that. And
That's the problem.
yeah, that is, because everybody has a role. And
Right.
you know, the work that Cherry does and putting on prayer vigils and your work and people who are in boardrooms, everybody has a job. So
Yes.
even if you're not out there on the bus stop, even if you're not out there protesting, you got to ask yourself, what's my job in my circle of influence?
Right. Place
In
yourself
my
in your
circle of
own
influence.
lane.
Mhm.
Yes, because like you said, you know, it takes all of us, but be in a different position, a different arena. You know, what you are passionate or specialized in, you know, whether it's working with youth, the homeless, you know, to help prevent the violence, working with, there's so much out here, so much work that needs to be done. And we missed out on that. We missed out on a lot this past couple of years, and now you see exactly
What happens?
what happens.
I know one of the things that was a tragedy about what happened to Tyree at that corner of 21st and Chestnut is that the light hasn't worked there in quite a while. It's been reported by the community. So it's a dark corner. It's been the center of 4 homicides over the years, lots of violence, lots of crime. So when I talk about, you know, everybody has a role, I'm wondering who is the brother or sister who works at LG&E, who is sitting in a room, or whose responsibility
The
is
council,
to
the
make
council
sure.
person in
Yes.
that area. You know, it's not safe for the elderly
Yeah,
on the bus
yeah.
stop. You know, and
Yeah,
the
that's your
children out there getting off
role.
from work. I mean, get some light down there.
Yeah.
That's what you're fighting for.
Yeah.
You know, get some light, shed some light. Then you know, maybe we can.
Be a light, right.
Right.
JCPS side, you know, when I went to the bus stop that morning, I was met with 2 JCPS employees in transportation. And I said, you know, have we had conversations about why this particular corner, you know, was chosen in terms of, if we know it's high crime, why would we have a bus stop
Right.
here? And his response to me was, well, you know, just about any corner in the West End would be high crime. And I said, that's a lie. If you talk to the
Stereotype.
residents in the West End,
Right.
they will tell you, no, you know, the West End is very diverse.
Yes,
and,
it is.
And this corner is known for that, but this corner isn't.
Right.
And so, you know, that goes back to listening to the community, hearing their voice, hearing the young people.
And media has a really big part in that. You know, if you want to highlight our community, you know, we just with all the gun violence, let's highlight about what our young people are doing. You know,
But they're actually
positive.
out there. Yeah.
Right.
Because they're doing a lot of positive
Right.
things. I know the
Excuse me.
Plug Network was out there with us yesterday morning, and we got an opportunity to say out loud, you know, with the media here, okay, let's talk solutions. Who would like to offer up some? And
Right.
I remember when Latasha went to speak, you know, some of the media turned away, like as if to say, we've had enough solutions. You know, let's get into some, and that's the problem.
They want
right?
us to go out there and act like fools. Something
Yeah.
to say to show everybody, you know, they want us to jump up and down and hoopla. That's what they want to see.
But we're so much deeper
Right.
than that.
Excuse me.
We are so much deeper than that,
Right.
and we need the opportunity to voice those solutions so that people know there are some real people doing real work. Real work. I know that one of the things that intrigued me, and you might be able to speak to that, when you had, I think, a skating party.
Yes.
And
Yes.
you know, it's all those things that add up that make a difference that we were able to access as young people that our kids today just are not able to do. And so, you know, we want to make sure that they get a chance to live a life free from trauma.
Right.
Free from trauma. And that's becoming more and more difficult to do. Those students at Eastern High School know someone who's been murdered. And there are families there that never thought that would be the case for their child. I remember the first, family, the first person that my children learned had been murdered, that they knew. And I remember being shocked, like, no, how did you know this person? And of course, a lot of it's through social media.
Yeah.
But we don't want our kids to think that's normal.
Right.
We want to give them experiences that are really child-based and child-friendly and developmentally appropriate.
Yes, I totally agree. We're at a little bit over 125 homicides, I believe, and it is a traumatic mental note on our children. We have to fix it somewhere. There has to be a solution in place. I think supporting a lot of the organizations, because you're doing great things in yours. Tell everyone about your organization.
Right. So one of the things, we're doing twofold. So one is with the Be the Light Community Development Corporation. And so that is really about shedding a light on the systems and shedding light on alternatives to the system at the same time. So we're about ending the school to prison pipeline while doing good in the hood. So when we see people and organizations that have solutions or doing good things with kids, we want to highlight them. We want to propel them as much as possible so that it's not so difficult to find them. They're not the big schools, they're not the major charities. They may be one person making a difference with 40 kids in their community. But we want to highlight that because it's all those little lights that make the shine so bright. In addition to that, independently as Principal Penix, my gift is to use the voice that God gave me to just shed a light on things in our community that are opposed to children, that really do children harm, that hurt our babies. And so using my voice to do that, being in contact with other people like yourself and this network, and just making sure that our voice gets out there and heard. And one of the blessings that I have is being able to do that without being financially connected by purse strings to anybody who has the ability to shut me down. I am totally a free agent.
Yes.
So I can say what I believe needs to be said or what God has given me.
Yes, we're servants for the man upstairs. That's it. That's it. So, that's it. Right. So yesterday there was an incident out in J-Town. We just found out what really happened. And with you being a principal, how safe do you think our schools are, and what can they do better? Because I applaud exactly what they did yesterday. But, do you feel that we need gun detectors? Do you feel like we need police officers or security?
Right.
In the
schools? A couple of things. One, I give my hats off. One of the things that makes the job of being a principal so difficult, and I served in that role for 22 years, is the lives of the people in the building are in your hands every day. And if something doesn't go right, they're looking at you. And the way that J-Town handled that yesterday was absolutely textbook. Everybody got home safe. Everybody was accounted for. And that story could probably be repeated 150 times for as many public schools as we have in our district. But what always puzzles me about that is the proactive end, right? So I was at a school the other day walking in the hall, and a teacher came up to me and said, "I'm sorry, are you a visitor here?" And I said, "Yes, I am." And she said, "Well, you don't have on a visitor's pass." And so I said, "You know what, you get brownie points for that, because first of all, I don't mistake it. I'm a pretty tall, strong looking black woman, and most people initially are a little bit intimidated, but she felt no hesitation in coming up to me and saying, "Where's your badge?" So that's a preventative measure, very simple. But the deeper issues are, how are we training our staff to work with our students, to build relationships, to know before a problem occurs, to know when they're upset, to know when they're scared, when they've been intimidated, to know when they're jealous, to know when there's a clique of people who are mad at each other,
Right,
where those
right.
groups and those gangs exist. How are we building relationships to be preventative?
Right, and that's where we need more black males as teachers. We need more black faces in our schools, whether it's a substitute teacher, whether you're a counselor, whether you answer the phones, whether you're a janitor, because these kids have to know that, hey, I feel comfortable talking to,
Yeah.
the janitor, and I feel comfortable, certain things, because they may not have anyone to talk to. And that's the thing, is that it does make a difference. If I have brown skin, it makes a difference, because I've noticed that even, back in the 90s when I went to high school, and sometimes I sat in the back of the room, but the teachers did not recognize the students at the back of the room.
Mm-hmm.
And they only selected a few, especially here in Kentucky in the Commonwealth, as we know, how they have taught and looked down and judged black students.
Mm-hmm.
So I think throughout the years we have been neglected. They have definitely, we slid through the cracks because of racism,
Mm-hmm.
and slid through the cracks because of so many various different things. So I think what you're saying is so true. It's so true. We need more faces. We know there are already lack of substitutes right now.
Mm-hmm.
COVID is running, rapid in our schools,
Mm-hmm.
but to be the light in a child's life, it only takes a minute.
And it only
Yeah.
takes, and to be honest, it only takes 30 to 45 minutes a week. So one of the ways that you, in terms of solution, can be involved is, if you're out there and you're a black male, you're a black female, are you willing to give 30 minutes, 45 minutes consistently throughout the year to one of our schools? So if you have that time, it is worth going to the school in your community and saying, listen, I can be here every Tuesday from 12 to 12:45. I know I can. I can be here. I can commit that to you. And during that time, you could be on the playground with kids, just out there helping monitor, but listening and having conversations, telling them they matter. You could be in the cafeteria, walking up and down the aisles, helping monitor in the cafeteria, talking to students, laughing with them, listening, building relationships. Or you can be in a high school, walk in the halls. Every
Yeah.
time the bell rings, you're walking the halls. And every Tuesday when you do that, students see that you're consistent. You mean
Right.
what you say. You can be that listening ear when they can't find another one on staff. But our faces make all the difference in the world. And that's why, we talked about, had we had some black faces in the halls at Moore High School, maybe that incident wouldn't
Right.
have happened.
Right.
If we had some faces on the corners at bus stops like we did yesterday, and that are starting to happen every day now, consistently. Some of the work that Stachelle Bussey did, there's a 50 Men of Honor group.
Yes.
There are quite a few
Yes.
groups that have already set up to be at bus stops in the morning. That's what we need to continue doing consistently. That's how we get involved.
And the great thing about that is, I always wanted to bring awareness. I wanted to find out how you felt about that, about felons working in the schools or working with children, and not only that, felons. I know we had a shortage of bus drivers. So we got to remember, we keep it real around here. The thing about it is, a lot of us, we have felons in our family. You know what I'm saying? For different various things, it could be as simple as, oh my God, they slapped my hand on the wrist, or I've been in prison for a long time. But the children live in these households, right? So they have to provide income, they have fines, they have things. I think my issue, my point of view is, it just kind of depends on what they've done. I think 3 strikes you out. I think if you served your time, you've been in prison for a long time, you want to come out here and help. I think that's why a lot of them, the boys around the way, I always say, or, in the hood, they started their own organizations and business, to give back. They want to give back, and because they've been there. And I think a lot of that with the solutions, I seen the other day at the bus stop, there was a gentleman out there. He said, look, hey, I made the wrong decisions. I was a felon. I was locked up, this and that. and I started my own organization. I can't think of his name.
Bosses Not
Yes.
Bangers. Yeah,
Bosses
Bosses Not
Not
Bangers. We want to
Bangers.
encourage him. Yeah. And you know, that's the case. Every case is really individual. You know, as I've said before, I'm a big defund the police proponent, but I mean that in terms of we will always need police. Unfortunately, there will always be sin, there will always be crime, there will always be crimes that need to be punished by being put away for a time.
Right.
But we also need to reinvest some of that money in preventative measures so we don't have to do that. And we need to be restorative in our practices with young people. And that means we stop asking, what's wrong with you? And we start asking, what happened?
How can we help you? How do you feel?
What happened? Tell us about what happened. And that goes over and over. I've seen that happen on college campuses all across the country, and issues actually regarding date rape, where the victim said, you know, this guy did this to me. That guy was approached, talked to by an officer or an officer of the court. He was apologetic, and they were able to bring those two parties together for real solutions and how this guy could repair the harm. Well, if you can do that with the most personal crimes against our bodies as rape, we need to have conversations like that about all other aspects of crime, especially violence in our communities. What really happened?
And
Talk to us about that.
Right. And a lot of the violence, we have to think about it as this. You know, in the black family community, we keep all that. When it comes to molestation and rape, we keep a lot of that on the low.
Yeah.
You know, and a lot of our kids are out here preventing violence. You have to look at their circumstances for one thing, because it is a issue here big in Kentucky.
Absolutely.
We
and
have these
even
group homes out here, yes, and
Yes.
especially boys. Don't
Yes.
don't be misconstrued thinking that young ladies are the only ones that are getting molested.
That's
No,
right.
there are young men out here that have been molested. There are stories out here. They're in the prison system because things have happened to them. You know, not everyone has a great childhood. They don't have parents. They get in this foster system and they're getting abused, right? So when a child is in the system and they don't have anywhere to go, then that's where the system has failed. But we can continue doing as you and I and those who have degrees, right? Have degrees, start organizations, get into a position where you can help these black and brown faces out here, because we are the ones that are getting abused. We are the ones getting neglected. They send our youth out there and in some of these homes, predominantly white. And, you know, there's nothing wrong with that, you know, if there's love, but a lot of times they're abused. So the next thing you know, they're going to school and they're crying out for help and don't have anyone to talk to. But now next thing you know, I'm joining a gang. Because the only option that they have now, okay, well, I need to find me a real family, so I'm joining a gang. You know, and then they out here and all their frustration is put into selling drugs and because they feel like they're a part of something that can keep them safe. You know?
Well, that's kind of like, you know, you mentioned degrees, but like we know, as you were highlighting before, that guy Bosses Not Bangers, you know, he never had access. He never had opportunity to get a degree. And so many out there, you know, may not. And they still go on to do great things for our community. You know, it really is valuing people, valuing what they bring to the table, making sure that all of their voices get heard. And that's where real solutions start. One of the things that I'm promoting in terms of solutions is these family meetings. You know, growing up with our family, my husband and our two kids, you know, whenever there was an issue in our home, anybody could call a family meeting. And because I am who I am, I probably called my fair share more than the rest. But it just meant we were going to sit down and talk about whatever it was. If the tension, if the feeling just wasn't the same, if you could tell something. So I'm calling on families to do that same thing, to get to our young people. You know, we were all raised together, and Big Mama knew us and tried to teach us, and then we moved away. But our cousins are still there. They're still being in some of those environments. So we need a family meeting where we say, let's talk about who are the young people in our family? What are they involved in? How can I help? How can I build a relationship? How can I be a part of their life? That's very important.
Right, and there's a breakdown. The problem, I think, lies in the family structure. I believe if we start at the family, I don't care if it's 2 or 3, 5, 6, 7, 8 people in the household. I don't care if your grandparents are raising. A lot of these grandparents are raising their kids, and you know they're trying to keep. They need help trying to keep up with the time and technology.
They need cousins. They need sisters. They need all of those people coming back and saying, listen, I know I stepped away. I know I was busy getting my degree. I know I was busy getting my life, my house, my car. Right. But you know, I've been neglectful. I'm back. I want to know how I can help. I want to build a relationship with my little cousin. I don't even know his name. I want to know his name. I want to know what he's into. I want to take him someplace every now and then. Spend time with him so that he knows he's got a family that cares about him outside of the streets.
Right, and then we don't forgive each other, the black skeletons in the closet. So, you know, well, I don't, you know, particularly associate myself, even though we're blood family, and that's what happens. You know, that's exactly what happens is the family structure
falls apart.
Yeah, it falls apart. And even, I mean, it was designed for the black family.
To fall apart.
To fall apart.
That's right. It was designed.
Right. So wake up, people. You know. Is there anything else you would like to add? You got any event, anything going on? Talk about your show.
Yeah.
Principal
Well, well. You can always catch me on Facebook, Twitter, are my 2 favorite sites. I'm trying to get in Instagram, but it just don't come out as well as my other comfortable spots. But you can always get me at Michelle Penix on both of those sites. And you know, I just want God to use what He's blessed me with to get the voice out there in the community that there are real solutions. Again, I'm grateful to you all for having me on to talk about these. But you'll see me, and I hope you come out and support in terms of knocking on those leadership doors and say, hey, listen, there's a better way. There's some solutions, and you need to listen to somebody else.
Right. And we have a mayor's race.
Yes,
so I'm interested to see how this is going to transpire.
Yes.
We need someone that is going to solve these solutions, hear the people, care about our community, and just not sitting in the office wasting our time.
Yeah, we've had enough of that.
Yeah. So thank you, Plug family, for tuning in. And like I say always, be blessed. Be safe and have a good weekend.